There we go. Welcome everyone to this, our third, took me a second, third evening of our Way of Ascent meditation. I guess we call it a project. I'm with Luke here, and we've been working on this, putting this together. We're looking to do this through the month of May, every Saturday night. The times will change. We are starting at 9 o'clock for the month of February. And then because of sundown and Shabbat and daylight savings coming up in a few weeks and all of that, we will be advancing the time, is that the right word? But moving it later by a half hour each month. So we're going to start at 9:30 p.m. in March. And then when we get to April, it'll be 10 p.m. in April and then 10:30 p.m. in May, which is kind of late for some, but you know, we want to give everybody in the Eastern and Central time zones, which is 75% of the country, opportunity to take care of what they do with Shabbat and Havdalah and all of that. So they still might be able to come and join us. So that's the schedule. So this week and next week is still 9 o'clock. And that's the basic schedule. So we also have our DevCoot group on Facebook, and Luke and I have been talking. We're going to put this all on a website as well. We're actually going to redo all these videos differently, more concise, a little more professionally. But when we do that, so we're going to develop a whole like website or pages around all of this as well. We will pause for discussion a couple times during the evening. We don't want to get too far down any weird paths. For some of you have been at this longer. Trying to keep this, you know, following a progressive path a little bit this week, and we build a week at a time. And for the time being, Luke and I are splitting the evenings like this. I'm pretty much taking up the first half, give or take, and he does the second. So each week I'll be bringing in a couple of new concepts, and then Luke takes over at about the midway point. We'll have a little mini break there with some questions and answers and take a little break too. And then when we resume, he'll be going off of those concepts and developing that into a meditation for the evening. So that's the strategy each week, is to bring some new things in, bring him into meditation. And like I said, we'll be putting this into videos. So it'll be nice, neat format in the future soon. So what's this about? Well, you can see on the screen here, by the way, yeah, it was interesting when we first started setting this up. Quick background, well, when do we do it? Well, let's start it in February. And Tu B'Shavat was the first week of February. And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool, because we're starting at a pretty basic level, tying things to creation, nature, or basic awareness. So that was neat. And then it's like, well, you know, what's at the beginning of March? Oh, Purim's at the beginning of March. Well, first week, I'll go, that's pretty cool. And then I looked at April and said, oh, Passover is the first week. And then I kind of thought to myself, well, certainly there's nothing the first week of May, because that would be too incredible. And boom, Lag BaOmer is the first week of May. So this worked out amazingly well in terms of, you know, when I saw this, I'm like, yeah, that's it for sure. You know, we got to do this now. It's meant to be, because the themes themselves for each of these holidays fit with the themes that we were planning to do each month. So that's the other really amazing part about this. So we're going for it. All right, so you hopefully are looking at the screen, the Way of Ascent right now, right? And I'm going to move this forward. All right, on screen right now, you should be looking at Rabbi Daniel Katz on the left and another image on the right. You guys got that? I want to make sure this is all working right before we go too far. And you're not still looking at Modest Yahoo. You're not still looking at Modest Yahoo, right? That would be terrible. The only thing worse is if the volume wasn't working, which happened one night long ago. I talked for 10 minutes before somebody asked me if I was talking. I was like, oh, okay. All right. So this is one of those, you know, if anyone knows me, you know, I'm a little odd in terms of how I put things together, but I was looking at a Daniel Katz video, and this quote really seemed to work very well in terms of what we're doing in general with this study, which is introducing the idea that, well, first of all meditation, most all meditation, I can't say all, is probably a good thing for people, just in terms of, you know, techniques to, relax and be more focused and all of that. And there's all different kinds of meditation things out there, a lot of which have to do with, like I said, just relaxing your mind and just opening up and being free and all that. And that's good. That's good. But Torah-based meditation is very different because it has a very specific goal, a very specific path to get there, and a lot of other means as well. We're going to quickly review that too. So it's a lot different, not a little, a lot different. So I was looking at this Daniel Katz video and this quote, which took me a few tries to get it all, listening and typing at the same time, but it kind of applied, I thought, in terms of, says if you don't have the internal reference point, if you don't actually know, like, what the point is, where you're going, it like a lot of people in meditation, actually, that I know, they find it empty after a while. I had that experience. Luke had that experience. It's like it's okay for a while, but what is the point, right? And it becomes superficial, and then it can actually, as Daniel Katz says, in some contexts, and he wasn't talking about meditation, but just in terms of not having that reference point, it can actually lead to aggression against other people. And being the big Matrix fan that I am, I kind of said, wait, that sounds familiar. And it was a quote in the most recent movie, which is very similar if you really think about it, in terms of not having the right view of reality. And that this world we live in, just like the Matrix world in the movie, actually can, twist things around, as it expressed in the quote, is that weaponizes things. And Daniel Katz says it's like, killing other people in the name of your God. It's just like, it just warps things. So having the right goal in mind, having the real path in mind, is a good thing, and what distinguishes Torah-based meditation. We call it Jewish meditation, but I think I like Torah-based meditation just to keep the focus on the Torah. Not that Jewish isn't, but so that's just an important thing in terms of the goal, of course, being connectivity with God. That number one, before anything else, that has to be the goal. We talked about kavanah, intention, last week, in terms of if you're doing meditation because you want to be more popular or get money or whatever, that's the wrong intention. That's not what real Torah-based meditation is about. It's really just about connecting with God and the steps to doing that and becoming closer and closer to Him, to resemble God more and act accordingly in this world. So that's the goal. And there is a structure, which we're going to review in a minute here real quickly, because we've done that, which is foundational to meditation, Torah study, and everything else. So we actually have a roadmap, a real roadmap in front of us to use. And like I said, we're going to explore that in a second here. So as I saw on the previous slide, let me go back here. Yeah, as you can see, we have a different holiday each month, but we're also following different themes each month that are connected to each other. So let me just go to the next slide. We'll go right here to here. So this is our key slide. This is the key slide I've used in other studies and everything else. And this is a very fundamental, basic chart explaining how things emerged through from creation, from there being nothing but what we could call God, all the way down to us, which also gives us our path back. And this whole idea of there being an order to things, like one thing then leads to the next, leads to the next. The term here is hashtal shalut, okay? And that's like a chain, if you think of a chain where things connect when I'm doing visuals on screen now. Well, chain, like one linking to the next. So that's the idea here. So as creation, existence and creation unfolded down, all the way down, we have the same idea of a chain or an order to get back to the source, to God. And you can go ahead and read that quote on the screen. It's just a quote from the Ramchal, which talks about this a chronology of the order of creation. And basically, if you look down the left-hand column of the worlds of existence, the way it's understood in Torah, in Hasidus and Kabbalah, is that, and you can't even say once upon a time, but we don't have the right words, but there was nothing but a pure singularity, we couldn't call God somehow, but it's at outside of existence, before existence, because everything, including that, a separate consciousness or separate existence, was created by what we could call Hashem or God, whatever term we want to use. But this is the idea of something infinite, or even, if you will, beyond infinite. Terms like Ein Sof without N are used, and there's other terms, but there's nothing but that. We really have no information on that other than what's come down in traditions through the Jewish sages. So we have some ideas about it that we can kind of glean from things we see in existence. We can kind of try to understand what came before, but there's nothing. It's like nothingness is really what it is here. And hold on to, if you have comments about this, hold on to them till we get to the halftime show, okay? And then the beginning of existence started with unfolding in what's called these different worlds, but the first of these worlds called Atzilut, which means nearness, which is because it's near to the source before existence. Kind of, sort of, in a way, you could say, just you can sort of say, mirrors this world of pre-existence, of pure singularity. But everything that would unfold in existence, unfold in creation, is in this like single point. It's kind of like the Big Bang in science, if you will. And this, including the idea here of God that we can relate to, read about in the Bible. That's God within existence, because we can understand it, we can talk about it, we can pray to this God. That's God in terms of God being immanent versus transcendent, which would be outside of existence. So you have this twofold idea of God. There's only one God, absolutely only one God, and God is pure singularity. But from our perspective and how we relate and back and all, we do have this concept of God that we can connect with, and then there's something even beyond that. Daniel Matt, if you're familiar with him, calls our idea of God puny compared to the real essence of God outside of existence. But nonetheless, you have this idea of singularity with everything that would unfold is the first aspect of existence, like a single point. And there's a lot of details to this, but this is not what this class is about. And then out of this single point emerges the next level of existence, which is actually called the beginning of creation, Beria, which is similar root to the word bara in the first few words of the Torah, where you get the first words, in the beginning, God, which is Elohim, created, bara. And so up to that point, in the beginning, God, you're dealing with this existence, but not yet creation, just those first few words. And then as soon as you hit creation, boom, aha, now everything starts to, again, like the Big Bang analogy, everything starts to emerge out of that. So this is this level called Beria, which includes, it's very conceptual. Things that exist in this level are not like they exist in the angelic world, and definitely not like they exist down here, but there's a connection between all these worlds. So Beria is things like the heavenly temple or the heavenly throne room, or the idea of these powers or forces that govern everything. In Christian tradition, they use the word archangels, like supervising angels, which is actually kind of what they are. They're like a supervisory level of angels. So this is the beginning of creation, very conceptual. And then, of course, you have another level coming down, which is kind of it's actually called like the mixed realm, which is the angelic world. And if you think of Jacob's ladder in Genesis, the dream he has a vision of he's on earth, there's a ladder and there's heaven above. This is what we're looking at here. So you have the angelic world, which goes back and forth. The angels carry out missions down here and go back up with, our prayers ascend through this, etc. So this is this mixed angelic world, and it's very complex, very tricky. And then you finally come down to our world, which is physical existence. This world is, by the way, the angelic world is called Yetzirah, which means formation. And then our world, which is Asiya, which is making, where things are actually the physicality of our world, which includes physical and emotional and intellectual. These things that are all part of everything you can see with a microscope, everything you can see with a telescope. It's all part of this lowest world of Asiya. But this is not saying it's not spiritual. Every world, of course, has spirituality in it, or it wouldn't exist. So this is how the Hishtal Shalut, sorry, I got a cold, of how things unfolded which is literally, the term means a development or order. Sometimes it's called seder, hishtal shalut, meaning order, like the seder at Passover. So it's the order of creation, how things unfolded from nothingness, pre-existence, down to a simple singular level of like echad, like an existence that's a unified one, and then creation, formation, and finally our world. So that's how things unfolded. Excuse me a second. If you look over to the right-hand column now, we're going to start at the bottom because, as I mentioned, this is a roadmap. So the path down from the top down to us down here is also our path back up to Hashem. And the roadmap on the right, if you will, is associated with what's called levels of the soul. And these terms that you see are actually found somewhere in the Torah, in the Tanakh, so they're not like completely made up. And we start at the, we get more people coming in, this is good. So we're starting at the, sorry if I have the cursor on the screen because I have to move some things out of the way here. So these different levels of the soul, and the way this operates is interesting because each of these levels of the soul very much corresponds to the world of existence that you see in the other column. So when you stop and think of our world, our physical world down here, it's very basic, very physical. We've got here, you know, the senses, sight, what is it, sight, taste, hearing, etc. And we're just dealing with day-to-day things. And this, so the basic Nefesh level of the soul is very concerned with self-preservation, with, you know, just life. You have to have a Nefesh or you're not here, you're not alive. So every human being is going around at least operating at a Nefesh level of the soul. Unfortunately, that's where most people kind of stay. And at some point, though, for some people, thankfully, they start considering that there's more to life than just this, what you see. That would be pretty sad if it was. And they start thinking about spiritual matters. And now this is where they're starting to connect with the Ruach level of the soul. And of course, anytime you're talking about, as we described, the angelic world as being very volatile, angels going up and down, you're thinking here in terms of the level of struggle, because you're going from a big jump, thinking this is all there is, right, in this world, to saying, wait a minute, maybe there's something hidden, something spiritual beyond that. That's a huge first jump. And a lot of us at different points have, you know, investigated things, made some progress, but then things got difficult and we maybe took 3 steps back and 2, or was it 3 steps up and 2 backwards, that kind of thing. So that's the whole realm of spiritual struggle, where we try to find our way to there's more than life, trying to see what spirituality is, trying to understand God or whatever. And people are different traditions, of course, around the world, but we're focused with Torah here. But that Ruach level is the very volatile level. And then we fight our way through it. We make connection at the next level, which is the Neshama, right? And this is a level of connection, where we, just like on the left, you have the world of creation, of Buriah, which was the, like I said, the explosion out of that single point above and everything out there. So when we, a level of Neshama, which we're going to talk about tonight, by the way, we start to understand the big picture. We start to connect the dots and make sense out of things as we get close enough to actually connect to God. So these bottom 3 levels on the left, Buriah, Yetzirah, and Asiya, those 3 worlds are all within what we call the world of creation. Buriah is the call creation, but Yetzirah and Asiya below, it's all part of creation itself, as opposed to existence outside of creation, if you can contemplate that. So similarly, we deal primarily with the bottom 3 levels of the soul in the same way. Most people in life, that's what we're dealing with. When you get to those upper levels, generally it's considered that these are levels that you access. All people, there's some rare ones, but most all people are dealing with these 3 levels. And the other 2 are more what become accessible, if you will, after you die. They're there, but that's primarily the case. But we do access or touch on aspects of them in this life, which is not fully as we do the lower 3. So again, that's another correlation between the soul levels and the worlds of existence, that the bottom 3 are kind of like a unit. So we started the first week talking about Nefesh, the second week about Ruach, and now we're at Neshama. So we're kind of completing the first aspect, if you will, of that 3-pack, half a 6-pack, 3-pack. So this is the basic chart. This is the chart not only we're using for understanding the path of meditation back, but this is the chart, as we'll see, and we're going to touch on aspects of it every week. This is the chart or the structure of everything in the Torah, everything in the whole Tanakh, everything in oral Torah, everything everywhere is based on this. I like to call it, some people come in here. I like to call it a template, whatever you want to call it. But this template is all throughout the Tanakh. And when you start to understand it well, you start to see it in a lot of places. And it's fascinating because if you have one idea here that connects to something on this template, and you have another idea here that connects to something on the template, then you start to see the connectivity between these two other things that you would not normally have seen, but now you see how they relate to each other, because every one of these levels has something about it that is specific to it. As we were mentioning, like the Ruach level and the angelic world, for example, are very, very volatile. All right, so now, so that's Hishtal Shalut, tough word to say, is the idea that this connection coming down from the creator through all these levels, all the way down to our world. And we also have the path back that connects one level to the next, going back up toward him. So it's an interesting and important concept to keep in mind. Okay, so again, I'm going to move some windows out of the way here. So the way we design this little meditation course that we're in over the 4 months is we're taking these levels of the soul to go back up, and we're going to address 4 out of the 5 levels each month, 1 per week. And the reason we're doing that is that the highest level of Yehidah it's comparable on that chart, if you recall, to that level of pre-existence. It's considered like oneness with God. So there's not a lot to say about it. Well, there is and there isn't. It's difficult. It's kind of its own thing. So we're gonna kind of save that for an evening in the future, or maybe more than one evening, where we talk about Yehidah. So we're going to go through the 4 first from the bottom up for 4 levels of the soul each week. And what's interesting is that true completion in anything, like for instance, if some of you are familiar with the Omer count that is done between Pesach and Shavuot, between Passover and Shavuot, counting of the Omer, you take these 7 aspects of emanations of God, which are also attributes in us, because we're made in the image of God. B'Tselem Elohim, and you not only look at the 7 of these emanations, but you look at each of the 7 within each one, right? If you're familiar with the Omer count. So traversing these levels of the soul is the same idea. You're looking at the Nefesh first, but you're looking at the Nefesh within the Nefesh, and then the Ruach within the Nefesh, and then the Neshama within the Nefesh, the Chaya within the Nefesh, and so on. So you go through each one through the levels of Nefesh. And then when you get through all that and understand it, and you're rectifying things, then you move on officially, if you will, to the real next level of Ruach, and so on, and you repeat the process. So you can see in February, we're dealing with the level of Nefesh, which is the basic level of what we would call, we're calling awareness. It means a lot of different things, but for purpose of what we're doing, and it's basically becoming aware that there's more to life, as I mentioned earlier, the whole idea that there's something else. So let's deal with that first. So that's a level of awareness. And then next month in March, when we talk about Ruach, we're going to be talking specifically about struggle, connection in April, and then unity, Chaya, because that's singular idea, right? That level of Chaya is at the level of Atzilut, of that singular, where we're actually all one. Our souls connect everything. So that's going to be a fun time when we get to that level. But as we're discussing all of these within each, we looked at awareness within awareness, a very basic elementary level in the first week. And hold on a second here. I had written something down here I wanted to mention. I talked to Luke about earlier. Okay, so we dealt with the physical aspect of it. We actually used the aspects of Tu B'Shavat, of taking food, something that simple, and elevating that, connecting that above, kind of almost like in a sense, the opposite, a rectification of what happened in the Garden of Eden. In Gan Eden, that food was a problem. It was done in the opposite way, and disunified, or separated, caused separation. Whereas we were using food in that aspect to create connection. And then I don't want to get too much into this. I think Luke will touch on it. But then we talked about, well, okay, last week was the aspect of struggle or emotion within awareness or within the first level. So those three levels, by the way, when we're talking about another aspect of those, is that the basic Nefesh level is very physical, the Ruach levels are emotions, and the Neshama level is the intellect. So, and that's going to come up again tonight too. All right, so yeah, so the week 1, we're dealing with awareness and physical. Week 2, struggle and emotion. Week 3, here we are, we're dealing with the idea of intellect or connection with regard to the basic level of awareness. So we're still in the first level of Nefesh, still in the first level of basic awareness, but we're looking at the other aspects within it. In March, we graduate, we move on to that. So this is kind of like our calendar, if you will, and the box that is highlighted in bold is where we are at now. I didn't put an arrow because I figured it's pretty obvious. Okay, let me move last screen for me, and then we're going to get on to Luke in a minute. So what I did with this screen here is I took elements of the first, the original template, the original screen on the left side. So those are the worlds of existence going down the first column. Singularity, as I said, I'll sometimes call Ein Sof, like infiniteness and beyond. Atzilut, which means nearness to that creator. So that's why it's called nearness. Then creation, formation, and making. And then the second column is the levels of the soul. And you can see the correlation between these. Yechida means singular, which is, corresponds to that pure singularity before. Chaya is like a collective, everything together, and Echad, the unity of our souls. We're going to do more like group meditation type things when we get to this level each month. And then Neshama's a connection, and it relates to the intellect, so it relates to Torah study. So we're going to be actually touching on that a little bit tonight. Ruach, because it is struggle and emotion based, it connects very much to prayer, and of course, Nefesh at the level of awareness and action. So you see this in Deuteronomy 6:5, where how do you love the Lord your God with all of your, it says heart, soul, and strength. Soul is understood there as mind, because that's where that connection is. So it's saying, it's in a different order, but it's saying the same three things. It's saying you love the Lord your God with all of your emotion, all of your intellect, and all of your physicality. So that's that bottom three again, as a unity. And you see that in Deuteronomy 6:5. So one of the things as I mentioned, we're at a level here at this third level where we're talking a bit about introducing some new ideas each week. And we're at the level of the intellect, the basic level of intellect within awareness. And this correlates to study, to Torah study. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go into the meditation. But one of the things we're doing as we're doing the whole thing of connecting one level to the other, and Hishtal Shalut, and joining these things together, is that by learning things at a level of meditation and prayer and emotion, for instance, this is going to correlate and help us in an area of study, for example, that these things are not separate completely from each other, that one will, help the other. So like even using that template, that chart can help us focus with our meditation, but it's also a guide in terms of the text and studying things in the text itself too, and which can translate into our own lives too, in terms of how we think and function. So I'm going to read you a little text here, which is a good example, and then hand it over to Luke. Actually, we'll take a short break for some questions about any of this. That's how we'll do it every week, and see if there's some basic questions. Again, not too deep, guys, but just something that anyone can appreciate on some of these ideas. But let me read you this quote as an example of what I was talking about. So there's a text that the question was posed in a text called Midrash. I can't pronounce this. My printer didn't print it well. Midrash Tanhuma. Okay, yeah. Well, it's not as well known a text as some others, but nonetheless, it's kosher. And the topic here was, well, there's no temple, right? So what do we do? How do we handle the fact there's no temple and we're supposed to do these things? Are we just, oh, well, you know? And this is a really interesting little midrashic type text, okay? I'll read it. Ezekiel said to the Holy One, blessed be he, master of the world, we are now in exile, and you tell me to go and inform the Jewish people about the plan of the temple? Write it before their eyes, and they will guard all its forms and all its laws and do them. How can they do them? That's the question, right? How can they do them if there's no temple there? Leave them until they go out of exile, and then I will go and tell them. So that's his request, right? The Holy One, blessed be he, replies to Ezekiel and says, just because my children are in exile, does that mean the building of my house should be halted? Studying, there you go, studying the plan of the temple in the Torah is as great as actually building it. Go and tell them to make it their business to study the form of the temple as explained in the Torah. As their reward for the study, I will give them credit as if they were actually building the temple. So there's an interesting correlation there between study and physicality, so being connected. But, you know, we are actually, by our actions, all of our actions, contributing to things in the same manner. Just because we can't actually do it is not held against us. You know, if we study, it counts the same as if we're actually building the temple, which is why I started with that Madhusyahu video at the beginning, by the way, if you saw it, relates to that idea. So that's an interesting concept that we can actually, prayer, study, and actions can kind of, I guess you could say, substitute for the other, if you will, because everything's so interconnected. So I'm going to pause for a second here, and because I think I'm handing over to Luke, and Luke's we're on this theme of study and temple here, and as of course this relates to this third level, as I said, for this third week that we're in, which we're at the level of Neshama, which is the level of the intellect, the level of Torah study, but it's also the level of the heavenly things. As I mentioned earlier, there's the concept of the heavenly temple, that is the design, if you will, for the earthly one, right? Moshe, like the menorah too, right? Moshe saw it and designed it. So there's the design, and the conceptual thing is always in that third level of Berea, and Moshe brought it down. And so you can see the connection there. So down here, we can study it, and it's like we're building the heavenly temple to actually bring it down one day to merge with the realm that we're in. And I need another sip of water. Okay, I'm looking over to the right here to see if I missed anything, or you can post any questions if you want to. If anybody has a brief question on the mic, or you can post it. I get a different laptop here, so I'm still getting used to scrolling and stuff, and I don't know why I can't seem to get this to scroll. Okay, here we go. All right, so if I look awkward, that's why. Oh, I got a lot of comments that were going on that I wasn't looking at. All right. So like I said, we'll take a minute here. If you want to run and get a drink or something, go ahead. If you have a question, post it. Oh yeah, mixed realm. Yeah, the realm of the Ruach, because it's a mixed realm, it's confusing. It's a realm of dreams, which can be confusing. So everything in that middle realm is a mixture, which is why we're warned in the Torah not to fool around with divination and all those things, because those things are operating at that level. It's a spiritual level, but it's that lower one, which is a mixed bag. Whereas the person following Hashem does not fool around with things at that level. You're dealing with the God of the universe in the way that's appropriate. You still deal with that level, but in the right way. You don't tap into that for your info. You tap into Hashem, or in the case of when they were prophets, they would be, that would be an alternative.
If I could add something to that, I've had 4 near-death experiences in my life.
Wow.
And I noticed when I started getting into, after the third one, I got real into actually researching them. I didn't have any idea how common they were. So many people have near-death experiences. It's crazy. But I got to reading, hundreds of these reports, and people frequently tend to come back thinking that they've experienced all of existence and their way is the only way. And I'm just like, it's not what I got. Like I sense why they would feel that way, but having multiple experiences to compare, you kind of realize, okay, that was more information than the last one.
Right. That's a good point. That's a valid point that no matter, well, again, I hate to do this, but I'm bringing in another line from the Matrix movie. You can never see past the choices you don't understand. So, you know, we can only understand what we have in the moment, which is nothing compared to all that there is. But yes, it's difficult for some folks to, it's very humbling, and it's difficult for some folks to accept the fact that we all know a little bit. We all see.
What I was getting at is most NDEs, from my understanding of Kabbalah, are really, I mean, they are genuine spiritual experiences, but they don't get beyond Yetzirah. They don't get past the testing and the confusion and the false light. Like and that's why people come back with all kinds of crazy different experiences.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Right.
That's very interesting. Thank you for bringing that up. So what he's saying, if I can reiterate in my own simpler language here, is people who have, and NDA is near-death experience. If someone has these, it is a true spiritual experience, but it's only getting like deeper into that second mixed realm and not beyond. So it's real, but it's also not necessarily, there's a line in a Matisyahu song that says the things in the spiritual realm are not what they seem. It's popped in my head, and that's true. So you got to be very cautious with any experience like that. We do sometimes have a dreams and spiritual phenomena Zoom room that we do. I was thinking of doing another one this winter, where we talk about these experiences we've had. I've had some, Julian's had some, Luke's had some. I know other people, many of us have had different either dreams or just strange things that have occurred. And yeah, you got to be careful not to draw strict conclusions. You can learn from them, but you are, as Julian said, you are dealing in that Yetzirah level of spirituality, which is, be careful, and talk to others, people who know a little bit. Anyone starts telling you what your dreams mean, run away, because that's between you and God. And unless you know that person like this, they don't have any business telling you what your dreams mean. That's my opinion. Just be very careful. Okay, so we left off. Okay, we left off.
Yeah, we got a hand up.
Oh, I didn't see it. Who wants to take the mic? Go ahead. Oh, somebody with a cool time diagram.
That would be me.
Yes, go ahead and introduce yourself to the gang.
We've met before, by the way. I've been some of your other classes. Shlomo Ben David. I have this audio book, The Mystical Kabbalah, by Rabbi David Cooper.
And he wrote God as a verb too.
Yeah, but this book is basically an introduction on the subject, but also he presents some guided meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
One of the goals of meditation is that your ego has to be submerged, meaning any expectation that you have, that first image, that first screenshot that you put up pretty much encapsulates the goal of meditation. You're going into it without expectation, without achieving any real goal whatsoever, but rather it is to be in unity with the Creator. And one of these meditations that he guided me through in this book is you sit there and you focus on your breathing. You become conscious of it until you reach a point where it becomes subconscious and you begin to find yourself out, as it were, for lack of a better term. And in this particular meditation, there was this curtain, so to speak, behind me. You could think of the partition in the Ohel Moed, so to speak. But then through this curtain, light penetrated, like beams of light. I was aware of it, but not aware enough to know what was behind it. But I had a sense of who or what it was.
Okay.
You could say Or Ein Sof, the divine light, which is completely imperceptible in our physical world. But the point being is that you have to start to develop this consciousness to a point where you become aware of the highest levels of consciousness, the highest levels of existence,
Right.
beyond this physical space of creation that we were created in.
Right. Shlomo, could I ask you to stick around after so we can really elaborate on this? Because I'd like to take more time with you on this, but just want to keep this within our time frame for folks. But seriously, I do want to talk more about this and anyone else that wants to get into some of this stuff after we send the kids to bed and stop recording. We're going to stop recording at the end of Luke's session and then continue talking about anything and everything. So that's the way we're doing it here. We have the PG-13 part, and then beyond. That's a bad. Sorry, but you get the idea. Yeah, hi Diego. So no, what we're doing, if anyone got in here late, we're doing a little bit of stuff every week, introducing some new concepts. Much of it based around our basic chart here, this baby on the right. This is fundamental to everything, and we're going to be adding new dimensions to this each week and advancing precept upon precept, as Isaiah said. And so that's part of what we're doing. Then Luke's going to pick up where I leave off with some stuff and bring it into a meditation, and then after we'll open it up after we stop recording. So that's our 3 sections to every week we do this. And each week we'll build, each month we'll build, following our little calendar here. And at the end of it all, at some point, maybe even or sooner, we're going to start re-recording these to make them nice and neat, put them on a website, and we'll have a whole section on a website geared around this meditation stuff, along with another section on the website that's already started based around the book Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs. That's all going to connect. And I'll probably connect it to the Matrix stuff a little bit, So anyhow, Luke, if you're okay, we ended up with me reading the text about, here we go, Ezekiel saying, God and Ezekiel having this conversation in the Midrash, saying, well, what do we do? There's no temple, and Hashem telling him, tell the people to study about the temple, and it counts as if they're actually building it. So nice connection there between study and physical. Last week we connected emotional and physical. All these things interconnect, and we're just beginning now to look at a couple ways. We got tons more to do. So I'm going to hand it over to Luke, and go ahead, my friend.
Yeah. So first, let me get a check. Can everyone hear me? Just type like a Y in the comments or whatever.
I'll even say yes.
Okay.
And I'll shut my mic.
All right, Baruch Hashem. Hey everybody. Shavuot Tov. Hope you're all doing all right. Let's see. Yeah, so this week we're focusing the last couple of weeks, first week we focused on awareness within awareness. Last week, the emotional struggle within awareness. And now we're going to focus on basically the connection between those levels and the intellect within awareness. So one concept that I wanted to look at, it's really old tube radios from the 40s. That's awesome. All right. So one concept I wanted to look at, which connects, it acts as kind of like a bridge connecting the temple with the human being, right? So it's very essential to learn this concept even before you start to learn the Central Road and everything, in my opinion. But it plays a key part because it's an experiential aspect of what we're doing here. And so this concept is da'at. Choppy?
Mike,
hang
your
on.
mic's cut out, Luke.
All right, can you hear me?
Way better.
Okay. I had to take the headset off. It was just not doing me any good. All right. So yeah, so we're going to be focusing on the concept of da'at and hitbodinut, which we'll get into it, but basically these concepts connect in a very special way. So in relation to the temple, I'm going to start off with a quote from the Talmud, which is one of my favorites. Rabbi Elazar added and said, anyone who attains da'at, it is as if the holy temple was built in his days. That's from Berachot 33a, and another from Talmud Bavli, Nedarim 41a. If you have da'at, what do you lack? And if you lack da'at, what do you have? So here, there's already placing so much emphasis and importance on this concept. And so what is da'at? It's basically, in a very simple way, it's the divine unitive or experiential knowledge and awareness. And this is attained through daily in-depth Torah study, meditation, and tefillah, prayer. It is the awareness through which we discern or judge. It's our capacity for concentration and attachment, or devekut, a vessel through which we can analyze our spiritual object or subject-object relationship. It's the connection, and it's our quintessential self. So the real you. And this becomes realized within going deeper into our Torah study, our meditation, tefillah. So this is a vessel for this realization and for the reception of the light. And so this concept of Torah study and the temple, it's as if you built the temple. Well, we just read in the Talmud, it equates da'at, attaining da'at, as if the temple was built. And it's, Rabbi Nachman says in Liquid Moharan 65, that the aspect of da'at is drawn down through Torah study. So this is the first basic thing that we have to do, because through in-depth Torah study, which is also called iyun, which is in-depth Torah study, basically, we can awaken the innate desire and interest of the soul and expand our awareness and concentration to unite with the object of the study and contemplation, internalize it in a very felt sense, and create an opening through which the light of Torah can descend into our consciousness. And this transforms our intellect, our heart, our behavior. We become a vessel for the light to enter into and flow out of towards others. And this is the concept of bestowal. So Rabbi Nachman also says in Torah 56 that shalom, or shlema, wholeness, is dependent on da'at. Attaining da'at is the heartfelt intention for the sake of heaven, as it is the bridge through which the divine Shefa flows, as we just mentioned. It flows down through us towards others. And this also elevates and unites us with the other souls. So if we correct ourselves in this way through Torah study and attaining this light and becoming a vessel for the light, then we also elevate all the souls which are connected to us and united with us. And through in-depth Torah study, tefillah, and meditation, we attain this awareness through which we build, which is another interesting concept of building, the boneh, which we'll get into the relation between boneh and hitbodinut here in just a minute. But So we build the proper intentions and connections, uniting heaven and earth, attuning our physical and spiritual senses, which is the development of the parts of theme, to Hashem's revealed presence in this world. So Da'at, the Tanya says, is the etymology of which is to be found in the verse, and Adam nu Chava. So nu here is Yada. It implies attachment and union. That is, one binds his mind with a very firm and strong bond to and firmly fixes his thought on the greatness of the Ein Sof. Blessed is he, without diverting his mind from him. So this is part of the training of constantly returning our da'at towards this connection and attachment and focusing on Hashem, because our mind constantly wanders, and this is where meditation can really help us. We can practice this in meditation, and we notice when our thoughts come up, different desires, things I got to do tomorrow, things that happened yesterday. If we can constantly return our focus to the goal, the focal point, we can bring this into our daily lives, and it transforms it in a very special way. So accessing da'at. So in the first week, we talked about, in the week of Tu Shavat, the rectification of eating the fruit with the proper intention is actually repairing the sin of Adam and Chava. So one is said to rectify eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Without this knowledge, without da'at, one cannot draw close to and partake of the fruit of the tree of life, and thereby gain immortality and freedom from the continuous cycles of reincarnation. So Rebbe Nachman teaches that da'at, or the godly intellect, is also emunah. And true emunah, faith, being the perception of godliness, of Hashem's presence and divine providence, which fills and surrounds all of creation, down to our desires and our thoughts. Hashem is behind all of it. He fills and surrounds it all. Ein od milvado. I'm sure many people here familiar with that concept. Nothing else but him. And da'at, being the vessel or consciousness through which we unite with all godliness, through which we attach ourselves to godliness. And so it's funny, I ran into this quote today, and I decided to keep it for this, but it's Rabbi Tzvi Freeman. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with him from Chabad. He says, there is sub-rational faith and dogma. Then there is super-rational faith, intuitive knowledge and inner conviction, a consciousness of a higher reality, a glimmer of the infinite within the finite human being. So it's this higher knowledge, this aspect of da'at, which is, it's also self-awareness, but it's a higher awareness above the self. And da'at is the ability to unite. This is Rabbi Yitzhak Ginsburg, by the way. Rabbi Yitzhak Ginsburg Shlita. So he says, da'at is the ability to unite the two mental processes of chokmah and binah, and we're not going to get into that too much, but basically the intellect, and is dependent on the power of concentration. Da'at relates to the truth that it perceives as a unified whole, and is thus an inner psychological experience of unification. The experience of unification is the conscious counterpart of the highest of the three superconscious levels of the soul, faith, emunah. Knowledge, da'at of God, the healer, reflects one's absolute faith in him and his power to heal, his power to transform. All right, so we can go ahead and shift into slide 2, Tovia. Thank you. All right, so yeah. Hit bonanut, which is something I mentioned a few minutes ago, in the concept of boneh, to build. So through Torah study and meditation, we're building this spiritual structure. It's like a scaffolding we're climbing up, And So in between those things is observation, the hitbonen. And Rabbi Yitzhak Ginsburg, Shlita here again, he says, hitbonenut, contemplative meditation or in-depth meditation elevates one to the level of histaklut, looking or gazing, and then to the level of debekut, which is clinging to God. Contemplative meditation also leads in a downward motion to action, arousal of the heart. Thus, contemplative meditation is the axis of the entire gamut of human spirituality, from action to clinging to God, debekut. So through hitbonenut, we can draw down this light. We can become a vessel. We can access our da'at, drawing down this light through us so that it flows out towards others, and we become a vessel for this bestowal. So sometimes it's difficult to fully understand or even believe in spiritual concepts because they're outside of our experience, right? It's like trying to explain the color blue to somebody who may have been blind from birth. It's that far out for people, It's the same with spiritual experiences. So in-depth understanding only comes through an inner experience of what a spiritual concept is pointing to. So we often mistake the concept itself for the truth, when really it's just a concept it's like Bruce Lee said it really well. He said, it's like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you'll miss all the heavenly glory. And it's so true. And that's a Torah concept. Because when we place all of the emphasis on the concept itself, we're actually not connecting to what the concept is pointing to, right? And that's where hitbonenut comes in. So hitbonenut, or in-depth meditation, is the form of active meditation in which we concentrate fully on a chosen thought, teaching, or object. This can be a Hebrew letter, a verse from the Tanakh, a psalm, and all these are useful. A chosen object, basically, that we can seek a deeper awareness or understanding of. And this allows the object of contemplation to completely fill the mind and consciousness at the exclusion of all other thoughts. So in doing so, we sense and perceive the revealed essence of the object of contemplation. When this is done with others in a group setting, our soul unites and bonds with theirs by way of mutual concentrated attention and heartfelt intention. So, as closeness and distance in the spiritual world is only determined by our intentional qualities and awareness, and our ability to focus our intention and awareness. So this is experienced above just thinking about the person, when we bond and unite with them. And we're going to go into this in the next week, when we go into Chaya within Nefesh. But it's basically just in the experience itself, it's felt as a reflection of our own essence. You see the other person as yourself, and then the concept really comes to you. The love your neighbor as yourself. Many of us really might not know what it means until we experience it on that deeper level. And so this reflection of our own essence in the other is a revelation of our boundless unity, right? Which is felt in greater and greater degrees with practice, but it gets to the point to where you can go to the grocery store and the person you're sharing the aisle with, complete stranger, maybe the cashier checking you out of the store, you feel this bond with them without them even putting in any effort. You feel it. You feel yourself within them. And it's not you. That's the major illusion here, because there's no individual, really. On a higher level, there's no individual. But in this world, we perceive this separateness. And that kind of brings me to an important point, is the aspect of ego. So obviously, like Shlomo said earlier when he was speaking, it's important to subdue the ego. But we should not destroy it, because that's totally against what the Torah wants us to do. It's totally against what Chassidut and Kabbalah, the sages, they don't want us to destroy the ego. All we can do is elevate it, right? We can transform it. We can use it for Hashem, in the service of Hashem, in the service of others. And so Hashem gave it with a purpose, right? And we clothed it with these intentions, with greater and greater heartfelt intention and attention and awareness. And through the study and meditation, we can draw the light that transforms into it and clothe the eye in this light that transforms and penetrates through and elevates all these aspects of our selfish desires. And we can even if, when it comes down to egoic desires, we really don't need to get rid of them. We just need to redirect them with the intentions, right? So we're often unconscious of this, that we want things for ourselves. Even if we're practicing meditation, what do we want enlightenment for, right? A lot of people don't really question this. So it's important to do this on a daily basis of questioning why you're doing Torah study, why you're doing tefillah, why you're doing meditation. Am I doing it for myself? Do I want to, like Tovia said, do I want to be popular? Do I want people to recognize me as like this super wise person? Like, do I want enlightenment because I don't want to have to deal with my problems? And these are all the wrong intention. And we should always check within ourselves on a daily basis of what our intention is. Why are we doing this action? And yes, meditation and using kavanot, intentions, those are actions. And they lead you beyond action, but they are basically actions. So with that being said, we can go ahead and go into the third slide, Tovia. So I thought this would be an interesting exercise, a little bit different from what we've done in the first couple of weeks. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to apply this whole study in a group thing. And we're going to kind of turn it into a meditation, into hitbonenut. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to read through. Don't cry. I'm going to try not to. But the first thing we're going to do is read through. And then we're going to do a little meditation and then go back and read it again and see what that's like afterwards and just kind of check in. So, all right, so let's go ahead and go through this. All awareness, the awareness of pleasure and desire, of insight, comprehension, interest, and emotions, as well as the awareness of all the other faculties such as seeing, hearing, smelling, etc., have their source in the quintessential self of the soul. We must say that it in itself is aware. This is the awareness of the soul itself, that is the da'at and the consciousness of the soul. This is the quintessential light of the soul. So let's go ahead and just get in a comfortable position. And at first we'll close our eyes as we do this meditation, but when we come back and read this again, we'll try to bring it all back together with our eyes open. So just go ahead and get comfortable and close your eyes. Just take a few deep breaths in and then push the air all the way out. Just let go of any tension in the body. If there's any tension in your head or your face, your neck, your shoulders, your arms, your abdomen, your legs, your feet. And just bring awareness to the breath and the harmonious functioning of the body. And don't try to change the breath. We just watch it. Notice how all this is happening without any effort on our part. So as we focus on the breath, we become aware of the cosmic exhale. As we inhale, Hashem exhales. And as we exhale, Hashem inhales. And just be aware for the next few seconds of this constant back and forth. This constant giving and returning light. Cosmic exhale, Hashem exhaling into our lungs as we inhale. And as we exhale, Hashem inhaling. Just notice the harmonious functioning of the body. Notice the air around you. The space around you is filled with this consciousness, with this light that Hashem is bestowing. His desire to bestow pleasure. Just try to feel it pouring in from above and below you, from in front of you, to the right and the left of you, and from behind you. All 6 directions, this light pouring into you. This loving light, unconditional love. And just feel whatever you're sitting in, whether it's a chair, you're laying on a bed, just feel it underneath you. Feel the connection between you and the bed or the chair. If your feet are on the floor, feel the connection between your feet and the floor. Feel the air around you, space around you. Try to sense the presence within it, within yourself. Notice if there's any emotional stirrings within you, any urges, any desires. Just allow it. Everything is there for a purpose. Any thoughts to come and try to bother you about yesterday, tomorrow, maybe something's happening right now, any pain in the body, just let it all be there. Just allow it. Just try to notice the place from which you're aware. Where is that place within you? Can you try to locate it? Where is this place of awareness? What is it that's aware of the thoughts and the emotions and the sense perceptions? What is it that's aware of the awareness itself? Just settle into that. Relax into it. All right. Now we're coming back out. Notice any thoughts, any emotions, any shifts in there. Anything in our sense perceptions. We notice any noise. Maybe we feel something in the body. Just allow it all to be. Come back to the breath. Cosmic exhale, the cosmic inhale. And when you're ready, open your eyes. So now, let's go back through and read this again. So all awareness, the awareness of pleasure and desire, of insight, comprehension, interest and emotions, as well as the awareness of all the other faculties such as seeing, hearing, smelling, etc., have their source in the quintessential self of the soul. We must say that it in itself is aware. This is the awareness of the soul of itself. That is the da'at in the consciousness of the soul. This is the essential light of the soul. It is similar to light because the property of light is to reveal the reality of what is. So for instance, a person may be standing in a dark room in front of a deep pit. Because it is dark, he does not recognize the danger he is in. He does not recognize the reality of what is. The moment the light is switched on, he immediately sees the pit, recognizes the danger, and steps back. So, this was a quote from Rabbi Imram Markle from a book called The Knowledge of Hashem. And they're basically, their teachings are based on the Mittler Rebbe of Chabad. It's a really, really great book. Pick it up if you get a chance. So this is basically just an example of it. Just try, as you're listening to me right now, maybe you're looking at the screen or checking your phone or whatever, just try to hold that awareness, hold that space for the emotions and the thoughts. Maybe someone else is in the room with you. Maybe your pets are with you in the room. Just hold this awareness and just be aware of everything. Sense perceptions, breath. To see how you can just hold this awareness and go deeper within yourself and be aware externally as well. There's this bridge there where this awareness is within but also without. And this is the place of perception and sensing. So as you read this and you go through and it kind of starts to resonate with you after the meditation. So this is a very helpful tool in Torah study itself, because through Torah study, as Rabbi Nachman says, we draw down the da'at, the light, the consciousness into our soul. And we can become a vessel for this bestowal of the light. We can live in a state of bestowal towards others. And this is in fact the whole goal, as the Torah says, you should love your fellow as yourself, right? So this is where it all leads to. It's the correction of all of us together. And we'll get into that a little bit more next week. But I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. And so now I guess, Toby, if you want to go see if we have any questions or comments or whatever.
Yeah, well, I'll keep the recording on for, I forgot about this slide. Yeah, we'll talk some more after that. So just real quick. Yeah, we'll be back next Saturday again at 9 p.m. If anyone had any specific questions they want now on the recording related specifically to these things we just talked about, go ahead and ask or post. Otherwise, at some point, I'll stop the recording and we can talk about more expansive things or, personal experiences or whatever else. So if someone does have something, Nicholas was asking about something. No, we didn't need anything this week. No fruit this week, nothing. Let me get my computer to work here. Yes, a couple of people, a lot of work got booted out somehow. So glad you got back in. Yeah, Moshe Balanya in Ushpizin movie, going out to the woods. That's the thing we can talk about later too. All right, so what I'll do is I'll thank everyone. Don't leave. I'm going to close the recording. We will be back next week. We'll be in the group, the Facebook group, posting some of these resources, the books and the names of the books and some links to whatever we talked about. So we'll keep using the group to supplement what we talked about and also to prepare people for next week. So we'll use the group both ways. It's another place, of course, to ask questions, comments, or post your own resources that are related to this. So, all right, so I'm going to stop the share and stop the recording part. I don't want to close the group though, so I got to do this right. All right, so that's it for now. I'm going to stop recording.